Hi everyone. This video is intended to give you a couple of tips on producing a very thorough oral history project. So first of all, let's talk about what the oral history is and what it is not, right? It is an essay that you're going to write based on what we discussed before, based on the basic structure of an academic essay. It has an introduction, it has a conclusion, and then in the middle, it discusses what the project gave you, what the project taught you, what you learned from it, right? It discusses the exchange you had with the interviewee, with the person you chose for the project. It discusses the topic of your interview. It discusses the reason why you chose that topic and that interviewee. So it is an essay, right? It is not a transcript of the interview. It is not a document that reads to me, I asked James what he thought about the French Revolution. James, or the interviewee, said he did not like it because, no, you want to think about what the interview taught you, why it's important to you, what others can learn from it, how it relates to the class and to the themes that you chose. So once again, this is a reflection on the project. It is not just a transcript. The transcript will be required later, but that is not worth a lot. That is just proof that you conducted an interview, and it will not be the whole interview transcribed. I'll ask you for 2 pages of the whole interview, only 2 pages transcribed plus the recording later on in the semester. What's due right now is the report of the project. So let's get started, because I think if you can get everything that I want to communicate in this video, you will be able to conduct your project much more easily and in an expedited way. Okay, so once again, an oral history is more than just an interview. It goes a little bit beyond that, because it is an interview and it is a conversation based on a topic that you chose. So you chose the interview and you chose the interviewee because they can maybe shine some light on a topic that you are interested in. Let's talk about the topic, right? It's very important that you define this topic. So you don't want a topic that is too broad or a topic that is too narrow, right? If it's too broad, the paper will come out just like that, not specific enough, too broad, and the conversation will not fit into a 20-minute interaction, into a 25-minute interaction, right? So you want to pick a topic that is not too broad and not too specific. How do you do that? When you think, first of all, about the class, the readings that we've had so far. Think about the history, right? Discussions that we've had, both Hastrup and Peter Stearns. Then, if your mind opens up with why history is important, think about themes that relate maybe to Manhattan Beach. What have you learned? What are some of the big ideas in Manhattan Beach? What have we learned about Anna, her relationship with her father, right? What have we learned about that point in time, the past, right? What have we learned about women and their position in society back then during World War II? How did Anna sit with those concepts? How do you think she fit within that society, right? Does that give you any ideas? My suggestion is to brainstorm, right? Give yourself 2 minutes, and then within 2 minutes, you're going to select a few topics. You're going to write down for 2 minutes. You write a list of anything that comes to your mind of possible topics that relate to the class. Once you have a list that is comprehensive enough, that has maybe in 2 minutes, if you have, say, 20 topics, go through them and see which ones you could really relate to the class. See which ones you could really find a connection with either the readings or the overall topic of this class, which is identity and place, right? What can you do about identity? What can you say about identity? And what do you need to hear about identity? What do you need to learn more? How could someone else help you learn more about identity or identity and place and how these two interact, right? So after you have that list and you select a few topics, think about topics that are maybe bigger than one word only, right? Instead of just identity, think about maybe the difficulties of establishing one's identity in blah, 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 right? Or the value of identity in blah, blah, blah. So think about a more specific theme, right? This way, the interviewee will probably suit your project better. You will find a better match for the project, right? So do not go too specific and do not go too general, right? If you go too general, if the paper will not come out right because it will not have good focus. If it is too specific, though, you will not have enough questions for the interviewee. You won't be able to learn much, right? Don't think that your topics are too bland or too simple. If you came up with something that you need some clarification on, that you think another person could help you understand the problem better, and it is a simple topic or problem, right? Why not go with that simple topic, right? Finally, you can always reach out to your group members, right, by just posting a comment, an SOS comment with a question in the group discussion board, or you should be emailing me. You should be in touch with me either through live sessions or individual meeting sessions, right? I'm on campus most days, available usually after 2:30, but when I'm on campus, sometimes the Wi-Fi is not good, but there is Wi-Fi, so I can meet with you on Zoom, right? You can plan. Your next thing to do, number 2, is to plan the interview, right? Once you have a topic, then you can start planning the interview, right? When you get to the interview, you're going to have questions, right? You're going to write down these questions. And I would suggest at least 15 to 20 questions so that you have a direction, right? This does not mean that the interview will follow the questions like a robot. Do you like swimming? And then the person says, no, I hate swimming because I drowned once. I had a drowning accident once. And then your next question is, how often do you go swimming? The person just said that they hate swimming. You're not going to ask that question. You had 15 questions, right? Maybe you 15 to 20. Maybe you won't go through them. Maybe you will add other questions because you will be listening, right? So it is a conversation, okay? So before you get to the interview, make sure that you do your research. Make sure that your topic is well understood to you, that you have a good idea of what you need to know, what you need to get some clarification on, what you need to get some more input from someone else so that you can understand it better, right? Technology is something that one of the handouts that I gave you, the one, I guess, from the University of San Francisco, right? It gives you that basic technology considerations, right? It gives you those basic technology considerations. Nowadays, because that paper is not so up to date, we have cell phones, right? So how are you going to conduct the interview? Are you going to use the recorder on your phone? Are you going to record a phone interview? Is it going to be a video interview? Is that something that the person is comfortable with? Most people are, and it's actually simpler for you to do it later, right? So figure that out, right? All the technology issues, right? And one last note is that it's an oral history project, right? It's not just a conversation. Use the suggested model that some of the handouts gave you for a consent form, right? Just a regular consent a paper that the person can sign saying that they consent to being interviewed, right? All right, so let's go to number 3. Okay, when you actually conduct the interview, try to figure out how this is going to happen and when it's going to happen. Make sure that your cell phone is silenced if you're not using it for the interview, right? So you don't have any distractions, any people running around. What is the best time for you and for the interviewee for this project to take place, right? Go through technology and test to see that things are actually working. On the day of the interview, on the minute of the interview, do a practice run. All right, we're going to do just a microphone check, 1 2 1 2. Let's do just a practice run. Mrs. Soto, Mr. Zwellinger, we're going to go through a quick test run here and then check and see that things are actually working and that you actually can see and access the recording later, right? Now, remember, you had questions before you came to the interview, right? Those questions will guide you, right? And while you're doing the interview, you can use a highlighter for check, I've done this. You can add sticky notes, right, to help guide you. For example, if on question 1, they told you that they hate swimming, and question 16 was about how often do you go swimming, you're going to say skip. You're going to cross it out, or you're going to write in your sticky note, what other cardiovascular activities do you engage in? So you're going to put that sticky note on that. I'm hoping that is making sense to you. So this is an interview. It is a conversation. So you have the guiding questions to guide you exactly for that, right? You're going to hear what the person has to say, and you are expected to have follow-up questions in your report, which I'm going to discuss next. So listen so that you can engage with the person and so that you have a smooth interview, a smooth conversation, right? This is the type of interaction that people learn the most from. So I recommend that you do it this way. As the people are giving you their thoughts, right? I know you're a great listener and I know you're listening, but that doesn't mean you're mute, right? If you're a good listener, you are probably capable of paraphrasing the answers to the person periodically, both for the person to communication, right? Both for the person to realize that you are listening and also to check that you got what they were trying to tell you, for you to check that there was good comprehension. So as the person is going on, right, through their interviews, it's a good way to pace yourself. Notice how your instructor doesn't talk very slowly, and I'm going fast sometimes. Stop periodically and check to see if the interviewee and you are on the same page. So rephrase what the person said with your own words. Check your notes, right, on what the person said, or your brain, your memory. So, Mrs. Stevenson, you were just telling me then that when you were growing up, it wasn't so common for women to blah, 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 right? So then you go back, and then if the person says, actually, that's not what I told you. What I told you was, then you go on with the interview. Oh, I'm glad that you clarified that. All right. I'm glad we understand each other better. And you continue with the interview. So it's a conversation, right? Periodically check to see that you guys are on the same page, right? In your interview, I know you have to time yourself. You want to go ahead and give yourself some time for the conclusion of this project, right? So I know I told you this will take about 30 minutes, the interview. So within that 30 minutes, there is time for like the closing of the interview. When all of your questions have been asked, you want to take some time with the recorder on to review what you did. You want to say, all right, so Mr. Jimenez, it's been really good to talk to you. I understand we covered here your experience working for NASA, and how your father was also a scientist, and how then you go through the interview, and these are just crazy topics that came to my mind. But you go through the interview